Jeffrey Dahmer kinda hot, not gonna lie. He would have got my dumb ass. Gen Z, is this what we stand for? Is this what we represent? Ello Bandannas, Khumo, Markham here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel where people watch me speak about whatever crosses my mind, and I'm okay with that. In today's video, we're going to be discussing Netflix's Dahmer, and unfortunately, this is not a review, but more of an analysis of concerns surrounding the show. So let's get into it because some of you are beyond help, okay? Some of the things that I've seen online, questionable. Netflix released a series titled Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story. At the time that I'm filming this, the series is #1 in dozens of countries and is one of the most watched series debuts since Stranger Things Season 4. So you can get an idea of how huge this show is currently. It is a 10-episode series centered around the notorious serial killer, the Milwaukee cannibal, and it shows events throughout his life from his childhood to his first murder to his trial. Now, before we critique the show, I have to give credit where credit is due. This show was incredibly well written, has an amazing cast, the cinematography as well as the storyline, absolutely brilliant. Chef's kiss, gripping. I was on the edge of my seat the entire time. It also did a great job of showing victims like victims and not like they deserve the murders like I've seen some other shows do before. Now, I know what you're wondering. If it was such a good show, why are there problems and controversy surrounding it? Well, let's explore that because there's quite a few. The first and major issue being that the show shouldn't have been made at all. This series is literally a story about Jeffrey Dahmer, a man with perversions that drove him to drug, rape, and kill at least 17 men, mostly men of color, before dismembering their bodies and on occasion even eating their remains. The thing about the true crime genre is that there is a variety of documentaries about this man that people can watch, so Netflix remaking this series was not needed at all. And true crime has become so commercialized that these big production companies do not mind retelling the same disturbing stories over and over and over again for the sake of gaining profit. It was so insensitive to the families of Dahmer's victims, especially when some of them vocally and publicly expressed their disapproval of the show. Them saying that they're doing the show with respect for the victims and honoring the dignity of the families is so ironic when they're really doing is just reopening unhealed wounds and re-traumatizing the families. I mean, the families mentioned that they won't even reach out to or even ask for permission for the stories to be aired. Imagine losing your loved one in such a heart-shattering way and constantly having to relive that agonizing experience because these money-hungry production companies keep making shows about your traumatizing experience and seeing millions of people use your tragedy for entertainment. Netflix's Dahmer may have passed the test by making their show very much victim-focused. However, they seem to have more honor and sympathy for their fictional characters rather than the people whose reality this actually is. Out of respect for the victims' families, I've seen a number of people go online and talk about how they're not gonna watch the show and encouraging more and more people to not watch it. This attempt failed dismally because currently the show is in the top 10 in 92 countries. It is topping Netflix's charts like crazy. Another issue would be that the show seemed to draw sympathy for Jeffrey from its viewers, and that is very concerning. The show was so psychologically intense. Going back to the brilliant writing, the way that the show was written, highlighting Jeffrey's upbringing, showing him being an outcast, having a struggle making friends, dealing with neglectful parents, coming to terms with his sexuality, all of these things in all essence humanized him. I've seen a number of people online already speak about how they felt sorry for Jeffrey while watching the show and couldn't help but think that if he was raised differently, for example, if his father did not introduce him to dissecting animals in the garage, or if his parents were not so neglectful, this all may have been prevented. And I couldn't help but notice that while I was watching the show, I was starting to warm up to him, and I constantly had to remind myself what a cruel beast this man was. And I can only imagine the kind of impact this show has on people who lack critical thinking, people who will fail to remind themselves of the horrid crimes that this man committed and only focus on what a sad upbringing he had. And obviously we knew this was gonna happen, but the show is currently leading to the romanticizing of Jeffrey. Casting Yvonne Peters was actually a double-edged sword. Yvonne is an incredible actor. Like, he bodied this role. I was even concerned at how excellent he was at playing this character. However, he is a very attractive man. And in the age of stan culture and thirsting over white boy of the month, it was only a matter of time before we start seeing some of y'all express how hot Jeffrey is. Netflix knew that TikTok was going to be saturated by fan edits of Yvonne playing this role. And that's the issue, because now people fail to separate the character with the actual person. We could argue that the real Jeffrey Dahmer was attractive. And as embarrassing as this sounds, I do agree. He is a 6 foot tall, scruffy looking white man in the 80s and 90s, so of course he was charming. I mean, his charm is what helped him lure some of his victims. However, you can acknowledge how attractive he was in here without having to go on the internet and expressing that to millions of people, because it is so insensitive. And what kind of reaction are you expecting to get in return? I know a lot of us are Lana Del Rey fans, but this is not Happiness is a Butterfly. This is actual real life. We're talking about a serial killer that killed and ate his victims, a serial killer whose victims' families are still alive today. This isn't the first time that shows like these led to the glamorizing of literal murderers. Look at how fans reacted when Ross Lynch played the same role in My Friend Dahmer, or when Zac Efron played Ted Bundy in another Netflix production. If they know this is the kind of reaction that they get from young viewers, why do they keep fueling into it? Let's also talk about how Netflix tagged the show as LGBTQ. This video of mine cannot be more relevant today. Yes, Jeffrey was a gay man, but attaching a person like him to the queer community, a person who literally killed other gay men, is so damaging, especially when Hollywood has a rich history of villainizing queer people. It is just so harmful to our community, and this is not the first time Netflix has done this. At the time that I'm filming this, Netflix has removed the LGBT tag from the series, and I'm hoping that they keep this the way that it is, okay? We don't need such figures being attached with our community. Lastly, the show being a Netflix release is unfortunately going to be a pop culture staple. I'm already starting to see a lot of people make TikToks about this, a lot of people making jokes about this, a lot of people tweeting about this in a very light way, and a lot of people making memes about this. And you know what? It's probably going to continue like this until Netflix releases another show that's going to sway the internet to another direction. And it sucks that this is the world that we live in. And as much as I want to say, well, it's society, we are society at the end of the day. And I wanted to take accountability for our contributions to diluting severe issues like this one. In conclusion, I'm glad that many of us recognize the faults in the show and are actually speaking out about this. Hopefully that pushes production companies away from exploiting such tragedies in the future. I can only hope that as more people discover and watch the show, they engage with it in a meaningful way. And I'm not going to take away from the fact that the show also raised a number of important conversations. For example, one of them being Jeffrey would have not gotten away with his crimes for so long if he was not a white man in the United States. Systematic racism kind of allowed him to go as far as he did. And another one being, how can the true crime industry still survive without crossing the boundaries of morality and idolizing murderers? This is just one of those moments highlighting how far we still have to go as humanity, how far we still have to go as society. And it's sad. We have reached the end of our video, and I hope you guys learned something from it. I would really like to hear your opinions on the matter, so please do leave them down below. And I will also leave my sources down below, so do check them out if you want to read further on this issue. And remember, if you do not slay, then you do not stay. But don't slay literally. That's it. Bye!